Hi, beautiful people. Welcome to my channel. Today, I want to talk about Chinese parents. The reason I want to hop on here and specifically talk about it is first, I just had a conversation with my parents yesterday and it was beyond frustrating. And today I was scrolling through the news earlier and I saw this Chinese Canadian pop star Kris Wu. His appeal just got rejected, so he's gonna continue staying in prison for I think 13 years. And I saw that his mom posted something on social media in his defense, and after I read into that post, I just thought I really need to talk about this situation regarding how Chinese parents are and some of the problem with the Chinese parenting style. For those of you who don't know who Kris Wu is, he's a Chinese pop star. I think he's a Canadian citizen. I don't really follow that, so for those of you who are his fans, don't come for me if I say something that come off as like offensive to Kris Wu, because I literally don't know anything about him. Everything I learned is through news that report on him, on his case. He got sentenced to prison because of the allegation of rape, and there were some girls that came out stating that he raped them, and some of those girls were even underaged, so he was sentenced to 13 years in prison, and he has been in prison for I think over a year probably. Recently the court just rejected the appeal, hence the situation right now. Let me actually read the translation of Kris Wu's mother's social media post, and then let's dissect this whole post together and look into the psyche of Chinese parents. Okay, the post starts with, I am Wu Yu, Kris Wu's mother, and I have a few words to bother everyone. First, the reason why Kris Wu has today is because of my wrongdoing. My child insisted on quitting his music career, but because of my ego, my obsession with fame that pushed me to insist my child staying in this industry. Obviously, there were some issues with the translation, so I'm trying to put the words together in a way that makes more sense. But back to it. And because of my obsession, it caused some rebellion within my child, and I apologize to the public because of it. And second, among the 3 victims of the case, Du Zhu, the other 2 victims, were also adults in their 20s and did not call the police. There was no physical evidence, only a verbal confession. All 3 women showed off to other after having sex, and both had a good relationship with Wu. So obviously she was just pretty much victim blaming on these women and stating that 2 of the 3 victims were already adults and they willingly participated in the sexual relationship with Wu, basically just saying that his son's allegation was unjustified. And this goes to show the kind of mental gymnastic these Chinese parents are making to rid of any responsibility for their kids, even though his kid at the time, the son, was already a legal adult. He could clearly see what's going on, like in the situation, whether his behaviors were acceptable or not, like whether he was committing a crime or not. And obviously there was an underage girl in the room, and he proceeded with the behavior that is just a crime, and that's just a fact. But the mom was trying to look at it through a different angle, trying to wiggle his way out of responsibility. It is so common in the Chinese culture family dynamic. The mommy's boy is a real thing. You don't really run into this question at all, I would say, in the West, but it's so common in China. There's supposed to be like this dilemma for husbands to choose between their moms and their wives, and that question, if your mom and your wife fell into the water at the same time, who would you save first if only one can survive? And a lot of Chinese men struggle to answer that question because of this mommy's boy dynamic, which is kind of messed up because you get these giant mental man babies who refuse to take any responsibilities in life because they were raised, believes that, and because they achieve certain stuff in other areas, like they have a good career like Kris Wu, and they got famous, even if they have a mediocre career but makes good money, those moms would just put their sons on a pedestal, treat them like royals, which is not really beneficial for their kids to build a healthy self-awareness and self-esteem. In this case, like Wu's mom was trying to blame it on herself, on those women, only except for her own son. And in this case, the only guy that actually had sexual intercourse with a minor was Wu himself. He was an adult and he was a conscious person. He could choose to exit out of that situation as a normal guy with conscience would, with morals would. And then let me continue with the second point. So in the video materials, one of the victims' confessions, there was a serious phenomenon of forced confession and inducement, and one of the victims were arranged. So again, like she was just going on and on about how these victims' confessions were not valid. Let me skip through some of this. Okay, so basically the mom was trying to say that the 3 victims were drunk when they were giving the testimony. That's why those were not accepted by the court. Third point that this mom listed out, at the beginning of the case, I was deceived by others and called the police because I didn't understand the law, and it's my fault. I am willing to take the punishment for it. My kid must be in the wrong as well, but was it really that serious to this extent that he had to suffer? All right. Yep. Again, like it's like conceding a little bit, saying, yeah, my kid was wrong, but I mean, it's not that serious when the law was right there. Like you can't grape a woman, especially a minor, and when you do, you need to face the consequences for that. And you can really tell that the mom just refused to let the kid grow and take responsibility, and that is probably why it had led to this situation to begin with, because Kris Wu just thought that as long as I am a wealthy, powerful man, I do well in my career, I can pretty much get out of everything else. The reason why he was sentenced, he was put in jail, the timing thing, he was just unfortunate enough to be caught in the middle of the publicity tactic to direct public's attention, because during that time, I think there were a lot of problems going on in China, and the media was trying to direct people's attention to something else, to maybe these celebrities, and he was just caught in the middle of it. But regardless, he did commit the crime. If you lived in China, you know it happens so often when you see Chinese kids, especially Chinese boys, when they do something horrid, say like they stomp on other girls' feet, or like beat other girls just for fun, or beat other people, like harass other people. And when others get mad at the kid, the parents would suddenly jump in and say, oh my God, he's just a kid. Why would you be so mean at him? Why would you take it so seriously? You're an adult, just let it go, and stuff like that. They never let their kid take responsibility. And therefore, you can't, like, when you do that to your kid, you're stumping a part of the growth, their emotional intelligence that will stay with them forever. And now you're wondering why there are so many Chinese men that can't find wives, that are struggling in life. It's part of it is because of this kind of sheltering from their parents. They never let these kids grow. Obviously, it happens to little girls too. It's just a general situation I've observed. Even you see overseas Chinese, they do the same to their kids too. And that is just not good for anyone in the long term. Okay, the next point that the mom listed out, I believe in Chinese legislation. Even after the second trial, I'm still gonna appeal for my kid, for my son. Obviously, I get it. As a parent, you want to protect your kids, and if you think it's unjust sentencing, you want to keep fighting until your kid gets, I guess, a fair trial. I want to just use that to discuss the kind of psychological problem within a lot of Chinese parents. This is a prime example of when your kid, when they were just a little kid, you kind of indulge them, you spoil them, you don't set proper boundaries, and you tell them, instill this Machiavellian belief in their mind, thinking that as long as I study well, I can get a good job, I can become famous, I can become rich and powerful, I can pretty much get away with everything else that I do. And this lack of moral compass that is very prevalent in Chinese families. It's like the ends justify the means, and your kids are just a means to fulfill these parents' ego, and it's a way for them to eventually self-actualize when they themselves never actually achieve the things that they really want to achieve in their life. So they kind of project that onto their kids, and that is why you see the Chinese parents get so upset when their kids didn't get into a good school, didn't get a great career. They wouldn't even allow their kids to be depressed or upset, because that's a sign of weakness. And in these parents' mind, they don't accept defeat. They don't accept anything short of perfection, because they're not living in reality. They're tremendously insecure and bothered individuals that never actually do the work to heal their wound, probably due to the historical problems in China. Like a lot of parents from that generation, the Chinese boomer generation, they suffer from a lot of mental illnesses, and none of them actually value the importance of mental health. They just don't agree with it, and that's why they just brush it aside. I used to always say, in China, the people who are the most normal are the ones who are in the mental asylum, who are in a therapist office. The most critically ill ones are someone that's just totally normal looking, that are walking in the street, that are in our schools, teaching our kids in different jobs. They are the sickest of all. Because of that, they don't really get the help that they need, and they kind of let that fester and worsen over time. And when they have kids, they would actually passed on that hurt, that issue to their kids, a lack of self-esteem, tremendous insecurity, and a lot of anxiety. Everything that's so negative, they just project it onto their kids. And it is really, really frustrating when these Chinese kids from our generation grow up and see how normal parents should behave and act. And when they look back and how much their parents are not doing that, when they try to communicate with their parents, the parents immediately would get defensive. And a lot of people that I know my age are struggling with that kind of communication with their parents, and they would take a lot of the projection from their parents, because their parents never maybe went into the field that they wanted to, got the kind of money, the power. They will use that kind of mentality and then push it onto the kids. And when the kids have their own will, have their own decisions in life, immediately the parents would deny the kids and almost shame the kids to feel bad about making decisions for themselves and follow the path that the parents choose for them in the name of, I'm doing it for your betterment, and how can I hurt you? I'm your parents. In reality, these parents are hurting these kids, and it's not benefiting anyone. And circling back to Kris Wu, when Kris Wu wanted to quit, the mom insisted on him staying because she wanted even more and more. And that just led to the tragic ending of Wu's destiny. He's pretty much toast. I feel very sad, and I see a lot of that continue happening in the Chinese community, in the Chinese families. And I just want to say, like, if you are somebody that grew up in this type of Chinese family and you realize how wrong it is, absolutely get ready to stay away physically from your parents, because one thing it's hard to come to terms with, but it's just like most of them will never change, and only you can change yourself and be physically, so you reduce the kind of effect they have on you physically. And then psychologically, you can only try everything you can to heal yourself, to understand that they are no longer in your life. They don't have to be unless you allow them to, and set your boundaries and learn ways to establish boundaries with your parents and not take the abuse, take their insecurities, take their projections, and work on what matters to you, what makes you happy and fulfilled, and realize your own self-actualization instead of doing it for your parents' goals and their visions in life, because they can only be responsible for their life and you can only be responsible for your life. That's something that I never realized until just about 1 or 2 years ago, that I can only be responsible for myself, not for my parents, even though they pretty much programmed myself to believe it. Like in China, this filial piety culture that is pretty much like everything parents do can be wrong. Like parents have this absolute authority over their kids and they can be no wrong. And I just want to kind of challenge that in order to gain my healthy mind back. So I'm curious what you think about Kris Wu's situation and the parents-child dynamic in Chinese families. And if you have experienced something similar, please leave that in the comment section below. And I would love to have some discussion with you, and let's heal together. All right, take care. Bye.